So welcome back to the Bonfroni channel, and today I'm going to briefly share with you a camping trip I went on where it got down to about negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit at night. This is in the southern Rockies. I was camping behind that large boulder at about 11,000 feet, and I'll show you my equipment in a moment. And off to the right, you'll see, well, you can't see a smaller boulder where I did my cooking. Behind that, I hung my bag of food in the trees at night. There was a dead tree with lots of potential firewood there. That's why I picked the spot. And it was a quite cold trip, but a really good experiment. I'll show you some gear that came in handy and tell you my experiences with what it could and couldn't do. So obviously, my top concern was how I was going to sleep at night, my sleep system. I decided not to go with a tent. My three-season tent doesn't do much other than block the wind. So I went with a 20-degree down sleeping bag I already had. I blocked the wind on the outside with a Gore-Tex bivy. And on the inside, I had a thermal bivy, a breathable type made by SOL. And on top of a foam mat, which turned out to be okay. I thought that was going to be a problem. So in terms of food, I brought a lot of no-cook items, so your like nuts and fruit and beef jerky and things of that nature. I also brought some soup, and for cooking I brought a stove but decided to cook over the fire instead. Water was a big decision. I couldn't carry enough water up there, and there wasn't really any open streams, so I melted quite a bit of snow, and I tried to overhydrate while I was already doing cooking. So how does a person stay warm at this type of temperature? It says it's 10 right now, it's upside down, but in reality that's probably about 15 degrees. I've tested this thermometer before. Well, here's how. If it'll focus, come on you bastard. So here's my shelter. I've got a survival thermal bivy on the inside, down sleeping bag, outer Gore-Tex bivy, different sizes of firewood. That heat will come back down on me. I'll probably let the fire burn out and just rely on this though. We'll see how it plays out. I've also got hand warmers if need be. So as far as clothing, I wore thermal underwear, top and bottom. I had a second thermal top, which I added later. I wore thick wool socks, and I had a second layer that I added once I was in the sleeping bag and my boots were off. I wore just a basic casual pants over my thermal underwear for the hike up, but then added Gore-Tex ski pants over the top of those to block the wind. Once I got up in this meadow, it got really cold even before the sun was down. So the wind was probably 30 miles per hour. I had a basic fleece jacket with a outer Gore-Tex shell, which I could add and remove. For gloves, I actually brought ski gloves but didn't use them. I had work gloves, which were handy if I was breaking a lot of wood or working with the fire, but then it was warmer to actually take my gloves off and pull my sleeves down, and then I could poke my fingers out and have good dexterity. I wore a full insulated balaclava or ski mask, and I'd wear it like a beanie during the day, but then I could roll it down and cover my face completely, which is very useful. I had a pair of leather boots with Gore-Tex inner liner and snow gaiters, which came in very handy because I started post-holing once I got near this meadow clearing. There were a couple deep spots that would be about 3 feet deep, and I'd sink up to my waist. So keeping the snow out of my ankles was nice. So overall, what lessons did I learn? Well, going into this, I wasn't sure if I was going to use the campfire mostly or the sleeping system mostly. And both of them were almost good enough by themselves. So the only problem with the fire, if I kept it going without being in the sleeping bag, I could lay next to it in all my clothing and my boots on, and I was actually very comfortable if I was very close to the fire, except the side that wasn't facing the fire would start to get cold, usually my back. The sleeping bag alone, without the fire, was almost good enough. So I might wake up a little bit shivering slightly. The only problem was my feet were pressing against, even with 2 wool socks on, were pressing against the bottom of my bag and compressing that down, touching the outer layer. So cold was bridging into my toes, and in one case in the morning when the hand warmers I had stuck to my socks had died down a little bit, the toes on my left foot, I thought I was going to get frostbite. I woke up and they were extremely painful. I had to wake up, get a fire going, and warm my feet. It turned out not to be an issue, but it was very uncomfortable. So I opted for using both. which was overkill most of the time. The other downside of the fire is every once in a while it'll drop an ember on me. And in fact, when I got home, I realized some of my stuff had a couple of small pinholes in them. The other lessons I learned were batteries. The batteries had a very hard time in this cold environment. My phone battery was nearly dead almost instantly. I attached it to a lithium battery, which I kept inside my jacket, and that kept it going. Water was another example. So water, I would melt water while I was already cooking, and then I would also keep a water bottle at least partially full, add snow to it, and then keep that inside my sleeping bag or close to my fire. But all in all, it was a pretty fun trip. I never felt panicky, and although it was sometimes uncomfortable, I learned a lot of lessons. Thanks for watching.